Hello everybody, welcome to our Go Beyond series and our session today on how to segment markets more effectively. A little introduction on myself. My name's Caroline Morgan. I'm a director at B2B International. I have about 16 or 17, maybe a bit more years than I care to remember, of experience in B2B markets, and that's across a range of different markets, and amongst that, segmentation has been a significant element of the work that I've done. I think we've all seen the influence of business to consumer segmentation in the products that we buy, the marketing that's on the high streets, and what we're going to talk about a lot today is in the B2B markets, how segmentation maybe works across a different set of customers with different types of needs and different decision-making processes most significantly. Okay, so what we're going to cover in the session on the agenda. So we'll start off with a little introduction on what is market segmentation, what does it comprise, and then why should we do it? What are the different approaches that we might take to market segmentation, and some tips. So we will leave you, as with the rest of the series, with 10 tips on how to go about market segmentation, things to maybe bear in mind, and I'll summarize that even more succinctly in 4 key points to take with you. Okay, so what is market segmentation? Quite simply put, it is simply the process of grouping customers with similar characteristics in their demographics, their behaviors, or their needs. Sorry, we're just changing something on the display. Okay, so what we're saying really is that it's actually too difficult to talk to customers on an individual basis. It's impossible to communicate with everyone in the same way. So on the one hand, we're saying we can't talk to customers individually, and on the other hand, we're saying we can't talk to everyone in the same way because everybody is different. And so that's essentially what segmentation is about. It's about grouping them together and grouping customers who are similar in some way, and that might be in a range of different ways, but in some way that enables us to develop a more profitable approach to marketing and developing our offers to meet their needs. Okay, so why should we do it? What are the reasons for doing it? Why bother to do it? You know, do we need to do it? Is it something that's required in order for us to be successful in business? Well, the answer to that is yes, because of those very reasons. We can't speak to each individual customer, impossible to do, and we can't make a generic message that will even sound like it's appealing to each of our customers. So we want to develop our competitive advantage. We're not going to do that if we can't hit on the needs of each of our customers and make them think that we are actually talking to them. When it comes to looking at opportunities within the markets and with our customers, segmentation will help us to find customers who perhaps wouldn't find you. You know, if we get our segmentation right, then we may spot opportunities that we wouldn't have done if we were considering the whole of the range of the market collectively. In business generally, we want to get ahead of the game. The world is extremely competitive, particularly in B2B markets, and we need to therefore understand our customers, both what they're doing now, but also what their future challenges might need and what their needs might be in the future in order to safeguard us as a business and develop offers that make us stand out from the rest. And that in turn helps us to make better choices about where to compete. And this is really about playing to our strengths, identifying where our strengths are, where they fit with our capabilities, what our competencies are, and how that fits with what our customers' needs are. So there may well be some segments out there that are sizable, potentially even profitable, but at this point in time, you as a company don't perhaps have the capability to serve that segment. Or conversely, you know, there may be segments out there that you are serving that are not very profitable and not growing and not very useful to you in terms of protecting your business long term. And therefore, looking at a segmentation will help us to understand where we should be competing and where we should not be competing. And that is as important as thinking about where we should be competing. The key thing about segmentation is that it enables us to talk to the market in a way in which the market can understand. So if you're talking to a particular customer who happens to be very challenged by competitive forces around them, who's particularly price-based, then you can talk in a language, your offer can be phrased in a language that makes it seem as though you are addressing what their need is. Similarly, if you've got another customer where security is really important to them, so they're not so price focused, but security is a key issue in the suppliers that they choose to work with. And again, maybe the message in the way in which we communicate our offer is around that particular need. And finally, it does enable us to create a superior offering. You know, so if our offers are tailored to the needs of our customers, then we're much more likely to see our offer create offers that are more superior out there in the marketplace and not the same, to find some point of differentiation. So what are the different approaches that you can take? Well, fundamentally, there are 3 different approaches, and these were always seen as quite separate approaches. You know, you can start at the bottom with the firmographics, and these might be, you know, the geography, the company size, the standard industrial classification, the sector that someone operates in. That's really easy to do. You know, most of us have got that in our database. We can see like all our customers in one particular state, all our customers in one particular vertical sector, all our customers that are large customers or small customers, etc. So that's relatively easy to do. But it makes certain assumptions about those customers. So it's sort of saying that everybody that's in one particular state is the same. And we're treating them the same, and we know that to not be true. And so it's not always very differentiating, it's not very discriminating as an approach, but it can be quite useful if you need to group all your customers in one area. The next level, which is a bit more discriminating, is the behavioural segmentation. And this might be based around things like what companies buy, what they produce, how companies produce things, what processing methods they use, etc. So this sort of information we do often have internally. We have sales figures. We maybe have share of wallet figures. We know from our salespeople what they do. We know what sectors they operate in and how they go about serving their customers. So it's a little more understanding of those customers, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because companies, a certain number of companies all buy product X from you, that they're all doing the same thing, or that they all need the same thing, or they're all driven to purchase that product from a particular supplier based on the same need. So the final one approach that I'll talk about is needs-based segmentation. And this is really about what companies want, what drives them in their actions, what they're looking for from suppliers, what culture they have, what they want from their suppliers, how important brands are, etc. It's a lot harder to do, this segmentation, but it's significantly more discriminating. It's much more likely to resound with those customers, and offers developed around a needs-based segmentation tend to be much more realistic in terms of customers. The problem is it's a lot harder to do, and it's even harder to allocate individual customers to that particular segment. And if you think about the business to consumer segmentation, that is really what they do, the needs-based segmentation. They don't need to put me as a person in a particular segment and know that me, Carol Ann Morgan, is in that segment. They just need to know that there's a segment of people out there that have particular needs that all group together. And if you think about companies like, I don't know, Nike as an example, you know, they're targeted, they've got a segment that is all about people who like to look sporty but don't really play sport. Then they've got another segment that's about a high performance, sporty type person that requires particular equipment. And that they have these very different segments that they will target their communications and develop their products around what it is they need. The next thing to go into is what the tips might be. And I think when you're thinking about going into a segmentation, my first tip is to get buy-in from the business. Segmentation, especially in B2B market, it does need buy-in. There's not a lot of point in doing a segmentation if you're not going to use it. And in order to use it, you will need to have buy-in both from senior management, from sales and from service, and from your product development and innovation teams. So when a segmentation is bought in by everybody, it's much more likely to be successful. It's much more likely to help you to spot opportunities. It's more likely to get your salespeople thinking in a customer mode, trying to identify from the conversations that they have which is the right offer for that customer and what is driving that customer in their decisions. Tip number 2. Know how you want to use the segmentation in the business, and this is really, really important to know why you are doing it. What will your segmentation need to look like to help you achieve that? And importantly, how will it be used? So what level does it need to go down to? Does it need to drill down so that you know which segment each individual customer is placed in? Or does it need to be broader and needs-based to use in your communications and your product development, but doesn't necessarily have to populate your CRM with every single customer, allocating them to a segment? And that might change the way you do things. So particularly for things like your communications and your product development, you may well want to think about something that is purely needs-based segmentation. But on the sales side and on the marketing side, where you might want to target particular companies with certain types of communications about your offers and enable your salespeople to identify what segment customers fall into in order to push the right offer in their direction, then you may want to allocate individual customers. So I think it's really important to do that, but make sure it's something that you can use. My third tip is to seek advice on how you can go about doing it. And here I think I should sort of alert you to the 2 different types, a hard segmentation and a soft segmentation. A hard one is very statistical and quantitative. It requires big data sets, either from primary research, as in surveys, or from secondary sources, as in your CRM or your sales data, or purchase data, big data that that you can, Hoover's type data that you can use. The outputs are very statistical. They are based on factoring and clustering, and several segmentation solutions may actually be produced from that. A qualitative segmentation, so softer segmentation, is no less valid. In fact, I've done quite a few studies myself where I've done a qualitative segmentation first and then gone out to validate it quantitatively and found very little difference between the 2 segmentations. So it can involve internal or external views. I've worked with clients who've done it purely internally, and others where we've done focus groups and various other things to identify what customers' needs are. As I said, it is often then validated using primary research, but depending on how you're going to use it, that it doesn't necessarily always have to be done. It produces typologies, and it can go on then to develop rules which can be applied to your CRM to allocate customers to that based on a judgment. Some people call it a judgmental segmentation, this one. And I think here, just think about what internal knowledge and resources do you have? Have you got anything internally that you can use, and how much do your people that you work with know? And don't necessarily think about approaches always being separated out into this is a firmographic, this is a needs-based. Think about how you can merge these. How do these all come together to think about how can your segmentation be used to the best advantage for the business? Again, back to what data you already have. And I would urge you to use that internal data wherever you can, even if you are going out and doing needs-based segmentation and you're going out and talking to customers in a primary way through surveys. You can now append data that's out of your CRM into the primary research data, the voice of the customer data, and use additional analytics based on the spend or the value of that customer, even the profitability. I've worked with some clients where we've overlaid that data and we're able to identify the revenues or the likely value of each of the segments. So a segment that may have a huge number of customers in it may actually not be a segment that's worth very much to you as a business. And another segment that looks small and not worth bothering with, it constitutes maybe 9% or 10% of the market, may actually contribute to 40% of revenue. So it's really useful to use as much internal data as you can. Speak to your customers, number 5. If you're trying to do a needs-based segmentation, it's really something that I wouldn't advise you try and do without actually going out there and speaking to your customers. Customers don't always tell the salespeople how they're doing, what's motivating them, how they're behaving. I remember some customers that I've been out to see on behalf of some clients where I've actually, in the chemical industry, where I've actually seen trailers on site from other suppliers that my client had no idea that they were using. So you don't always know just from talking internally. So talk to the customers, get to understand how they think, the challenges that they're facing, their needs both now and in the future, how they're responding to the challenges they're facing, why they behave as they do, and what's motivating them. So that can all contribute to your segmentation. Work with your research partner to identify the right segmentation for your business. So is a behavioral or an attitudinal or a needs-driven segmentation the best one for you to do? Tip number 7, make sure the segmentation makes sense to others in the business. It's really important that when you do your segmentation, people can actually understand it. So when you look at the segments, can you sort of look at them, and do people within the business say, ah, yes, I can think of customer X, I can think of customer Y. Are they recognizable as segments? Will people be able to identify with them? And will they be able to ask enough questions to put them into a segment, even if it's only in their own mind, if it's not necessary within your CRM? So are they believable? Are they relevant? Can they relate to them? And most importantly, are they actionable? Keep it simple. Keep it easy to understand. Don't end up with a big matrix or a grid with 15, 25 segments in it. The best segmentations, particularly needs-based segmentations, work when they're in the definitely less than double digits. 4 or 5 segmentation solutions are okay, but just think in your own mind, with a needs-based segmentation, how many personas can you keep in your mind? How many can you remember? It is possible to overlay needs-based segmentations on some of that firmographic stuff, like a big company and a little company in this particular segment. What does it look like? And that works really well. But certainly don't make the needs-based segments too difficult for people to grab a hold of and understand and use in their day-to-day working with customers. And finally, not finally, number 9, create personas to communicate the segmentation to the company. You've got to communicate. There's no point in doing a segmentation and then everybody doesn't know about it. It has to become embedded within the culture of the organization, that people think customer. And when they think customer, they think the different types of customers and the things that are driving them, the things that are motivating them, and the reasons why you want them to choose your offer that make your offer compelling over and above those of your competitors. So anything that you can do, whether it's through talking heads videos around the place, whether it's on the website, whether it's through, I know one company that has cardboard cutouts of them so that they can see them. They've got names, they're actual people. So give those segments a name, give those segments a persona, communicate them across the company so that people can understand them and use them. And finally, last tip, position your customer propositions around the segments and their needs. There's no point in doing a segmentation if your offer isn't going to address the needs of those particular segments. And some of them, if you remember at the beginning, we said choose where you want to compete. Some of them you might say, we haven't got an offer for that particular customer. That's not a customer segment that fits with our capabilities or that meets with where we want to be as a company in the future. And so we may have chosen some segments where our offer really is superior. And we may well pick up those customers just by chance or just because they happen across us, but we might not be actually targeting them. So in summary, my last slide now, and I think that's bang on my 20 minutes there. We did say it was 20 minutes, but think of your segmentation, 4 key issues here. Have a clear business objective and get everybody on board. That's your starting point. Ensure it's doable. Don't go for something so complicated that you can't actually do it. Make it relevant and make it actionable. Go back to those business objectives. Does it address why you went about doing it in the first place? And finally, communicate and embed it within the business. So make it part of everything you do, the way you serve customers, the products you develop, the offers you develop, and your communications and advertising approaches. Okay, that concludes my session. Anybody got any questions that they want to submit? And someone's asking me if you have to choose which type of segmentation you want to do. You remember we talked about the different approaches to segmentation. Well, you use the best segmentation for your business, whatever it is you want to do. And I think I would probably advise that some of the best segmentations are ones that incorporate all of them. So you can conduct a segmentation, that same approach using your firmographic and behavioral data, and then go out and speak to customers, do a needs-based segmentation and overlay them on top of each other, and then think about how you serve those segments and how you direct your communications from that. Someone is asking, is there a specific template for consumer-based products? I think, are you thinking there about maybe the template where you're looking at price, you're looking at service, and you're looking at quality or product? Those are probably 3 of the key areas that you would look at within a consumer segmentation. And I also think that increasingly, if you are going out to a needs-based segmentation, is to try and include some of your questioning around the challenges that people are facing in the future, or the direction that the business is going in the future, because what you want to do is to, remember, get ahead of the game. So you want to try and maybe include some things that help you to be proactive in the future and help you to be predictive even in the future of what will happen to those segments. Will those segments grow in size? Will they shrink in size? Will they get replaced by other things? And that perhaps leads on to thinking of that segmentations, particularly needs-based segmentations, do need to be repeated every few years to keep them current. I'm not sure what we have got. Another question that's asking a little bit about the software used in B2C segmentations. I'm not really quite sure what you're meaning by that question, so I'll just address another one if you want to expand on that question, what it is you want to know. But so another question that's come through is how do you get a sales force on board? Salespeople feel often that they know their customers really well. They kind of often have a problem with some segmentation of sort of thinking, well, I know each of my customers. And I think in part it comes from involving them very early on in getting them to think about how the segments work, getting their input into how the segments come together. Because sometimes if we go back to that soft segmentation, you can do segmentations where you sort of pull out some customers as being big enough to be a segment on their own. And particularly in B2B, they do need to be treated as a segment on their own because their needs are very specific, their value to the business is very large. So the input from the sales force right from the beginning is really critical in getting them on board. The other thing that I've done is workshops with them along the way. So maybe done a qualitative segmentation, shared that with them and get them to think about that all of their customers that they deal with and put them into the buckets, the different buckets. By that I mean the different segments, and ask them, are there any customers that they've got that they would not know what to do with? Do they think that there are any needs that they come across that perhaps are not catered for in the segmentation? And then we can feed that into the second stage. So it is about making them feel valued, valuing the knowledge that they have of their customers and incorporating that into the way in which you develop your approach to segmentation. Okay, I'm going to finish there and thank you all very much for signing in and listening to me, and I hope we'll see you again at any of our webinars in the future. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.